Hello, this is Tracy, and this is a follow-up to a video I did on damage over time. In that video, I stated that a status effect already in place and doing damage over time would be replaced by a subsequent damage over time proc, regardless of the relative size of the damage levels, unless the second dot was significantly smaller than the first. I said I wasn't sure what the exact threshold was, but that it was between 25 and 50%. If the second dot damage level was somewhere south of 50%, of the one already in place, the second smaller one would not replace it. It wouldn't even proc in the first place. Let me show you that real quick here. This has a dot of 611, 745, and 100, which is less than 50% of both of these two here. I'm going to fire this guy first, then this guy, then this guy, so you can see these two guys who can replace each other. Then I'll fire this guy and nothing will happen. So the smaller one, there we go. Bigger one, 120s, 130s. Back to 102, 103, 104, 107. Let it run out here. But when I do this guy and then go to a really small one, nothing happens, because that last guy is 50% less damage-wise than the bigger guy. Okay, I said I'd get back to you when I figured out the exact threshold was, and it is 50%. Okay, this may have some bearing on infusion, which is another video I'm already working on, but for now I can at least clarify that's the main point. Okay, 50%. If your second dot is less than 50%, it won't even proc. Okay, if you're interested in learning how I determine that and one other minor nuance to how it works, stick around. Otherwise, that's the video. I've also updated the description in the other video to reflect this issue. Thank you. Okay, what I did was I took this TDR SMG here and I used it as my low-end control. It does 317 dot per second of radiation damage before any mods are applied, with an 8% proc chance. So that's about a 1 in 13 chance on average. Roughly every 13th shot will proc. And I put that up against a variety of other radiation weapons with varying dot damage levels. What I would do is shoot this technical with the larger dot weapon until a radiation dot procced, and then switch to the SMG and empty the mag into the same technical. Now with a 24 round mag and a rate of fire of just under 8 rounds per second, I could empty the SMG in about 3 seconds, well before the original 8-second radiation dot ran its course. Now, if the SMG proc dot, it would be obvious, both in the change in dot damage numbers bubbling up and the additional rush stack indicator at the bottom of the screen. Okay, so I basically did this. Except that I didn't throw the gun at the technical at the end. Okay, I did this test 10 times with each combination of guns. That's 240 rounds from the SMG, 240 chances to proc damage over time. The results of the actual tests are on this table. The big damage guns are across the top. Their dot damage listings are just below. The TDR SMG is to the left with its rating of 317. Now the color shaded rows are the ratios of the big dot damage to the smaller SMG's dot damage. Gray shading means 0 dot procs by the SMG out of 240 rounds fired, while the larger dot was already in place. Not one procced another smaller dot, which is just what I demonstrated. Okay. The green shading on the far right is the one instance when the smaller dot damage was greater than 50% of the larger. In this case, dot not only procced, the proc rate was about as expected. I observed 12 procs in 240 attempts. Okay. The yellow shaded cell shows the one time it was just a hair under 50%. So between the 48.6% result, no procs, and the 52% result, okay, 8% as expected, it's obvious that 50% is the threshold. Now the cell is shaded in the middle there yellow, however, because even though the smaller listed dot level is less than 50% of the target, or the larger one, I actually got damage over time to proc a few times. 5 or 6 out of those 240 actually. Okay, I can't say for sure why, but I expect it has to do with the variation in actual damage over time numbers. I mentioned in the previous video that I don't know why the actual numbers bubbling up are constant, or not constant rather. There, come on. You want the proc. See, that varies. They're not constant, they're not flat. They vary by about 5%. Okay, I don't know why that is. I still don't know why. But if you compare the range of numbers for both smaller and larger dot damage for those two weapons on the table there, instead of just the flat listed values on the stat cards, you have situations where the smaller dot damage is actually slightly more than 50% of the larger. The low end of the large dot numbers observed is 106. The high end of the smaller dot is 55, and 55 is about 52% of 106. So I assume that's what's going on. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching.